course, there's a second reason why we wanted to have you on today, which is to speak about something else that you have a little bit of experience with, which is European Cup finals. So it's 25 years this month since Copenhagen, a 1-0 victory against Parma. It's still, to this day, our last European title. Danny, I was in college in 1994, so I didn't get to watch this game. I'm sure you have a memory.
I watched it at home because back then trying to watch games on TV was really hard. And so you're on about the 94 Cup Winners' Cup final against Parma?
Yep.
Yeah, I watched that at home. It was very rare you got to watch a game. One of the few games I actually got to watch was we played Independiente of Argentina, a friendly, and for some reason that was on at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. That was the how weird it was with the games they played. But I remember the final, and I remember thinking Parma, they are one hell of a team with Brolin and Asprilla and all these other wonderful players. I thought we had no chance, especially as Ian Wright was suspended for it, I think.
Yeah, well, you have a chance anytime you've got number 9 firing for you. But we bring this up, obviously, because of the Europa League final on Wednesday. We're not going to review Parma. Again, you can hear about that in our August interview. But I do have 2 questions I want to ask that we didn't really get to last time. Alan, English clubs were banned from European competition as a result of Heysel, starting in 1985 and going pretty much through 1990-91. And the actions, it was based on the actions of Liverpool supporters on a particular day. But really, to me, I mean, it was a time where hooliganism wasn't necessarily, just connected to Liverpool. It was really a black mark on England from the rest of Europe. The ban ended up lasting pretty much right through the early prime of your Arsenal career, and it robbed Arsenal of 3 UEFA Cups, 1 European Cup appearance, and the UEFA Cup wasn't like the Europa League is now. It was minus the actual champions of each league. It was the next 2 or 3 teams from all the top leagues. So it was a prestigious competition. How did you and your teammates feel about really being robbed from the opportunity to participate in those competitions when, traditionally you'd earned the right to be there? Was there bitterness, frustration?
No, disappointment, I think, because having worked so hard to win the league and you'd grown up watching the European Cup, and, I was a Villa fan as a boy. I'd seen my team win it, and obviously Liverpool had Nottingham Forest, and that was special times. And you'd think, wow, we've won the title, we've won the league, and now we can't enter this competition. So, yeah, we were all disappointed. Then we had a chance 2 years later after winning it in 91, of course. But yeah, I mean, we all had to accept it, didn't we? That was how it was back then. I think there was talk that, they'd come down too hard on the English clubs when, maybe fans in other countries weren't punished so heavily. But thank goodness, we did sort all that out. And, we went on again to dominate Europe for a spell. And, we have this year again. So.
Oh my God! Yeah,
but
a little too much, in my opinion. But
yeah. Well, we'll see. I know a lot of Arsenal fans last night they said I can't watch the Champions League final, just in case Spurs win it. But we've got to do our business and try and beat Chelsea, and we can't do much about what happens in Madrid.
I've told my family that if we don't win the Europa League, I'm just, not only am I not watching it, I'm throwing away all of our televisions because I don't even want, and I'm throwing away the internet. I'm getting rid of the internet. My kids are going to kill me. But
yeah.
In your time at Arsenal, you raised 2 First Division trophies, an FA Cup, a League Cup, 2 Golden Boot awards, and in '94, finally the Cup Winners' Cup trophy. Are the feelings any different when you? And I know there's more nuance to this as it relates to the timing of your career and what was going on, but just can you compare the feeling of raising a European trophy versus a domestic trophy?
No, they are different. They are different.
I know you love comparing things, but
yeah, I mean, I suppose you could compare Anfield '89 with the Cup Winners' Cup because it was, it's a one-off, wasn't it? Almost Anfield '89, so that felt like you'd won a cup final. But obviously you get judged over 38 games with the league, and it was, I don't know how many games we played to lift the European Cup Winners' Cup, but
it was about 10 maybe, because it was 32 teams, 2 legs, and 1 in the final, so maybe 9.
Yeah, and we were a different team in '94, and we were a very good cup team. because we've got the back four, the back five with Dave Seaman, and we've got Ian Wright, and obviously that's when 1-0 to the Arsenal was born. So we could nick games, which that was much different to our league winning campaigns. But it was a great thrill because, as Danny just said, Parma were the massive favourites with all the players that they had, and with us having Righty out and Martin Keown out, Dave Hillier failed the fitness test. It was midfield, to say the least, was makeshift with Ian Selly and Stevie Morrow. I mean, they played brilliantly on the night next to Paul Davis, but you're going into it thinking, we're going to do ever so well to stay in this match. Never mind about win it. So at the end, it was an amazing feeling.
I can imagine. And moving to our cup final coming up on Wednesday, Baku, Azerbaijan, kicking off at 11 p.m. Unfortunately, as you know, the narrative on this game seems to be almost less about the game itself and more about everything outside of the game. And we've been talking about it here on the podcast and on other podcasts for a couple of weeks. My feelings have been expressed pretty clearly, but I'm interested in yours to the extent that you can share them with us. How do you feel with regards to, forget Mkhitaryan for a second and that whole issue, but just the logistical and the details of how Baku came to be hosting this cup final?
Well, I can understand the theory. FIFA do it as well. They want to spread the love, spread the destinations in the world. And with UEFA in Europe, I mean, Azerbaijan in Europe, actually, technically, I don't know, but they're right on the fringes of it, aren't they?
Eurasia.
If a team from Russia and Ukraine had got to the final, nobody would be saying much. But it's not worked out well for UEFA, two English clubs. But, they...
Uh-oh. Let's all ponder what Alan was saying, because I think we've lost him for a second here.
Sorry, the phone was ringing now. I lost you for a second. Yeah, I mean, UEFA knew the deal. They knew that it was going to be difficult for a lot of teams from a lot of countries. If it was a French or a German team, it's still going to be equally as difficult, isn't it, to get to Baku? So whether they thought a lot of the locals would take up their allocation, they misjudged that, it sounds like. And they maybe misjudged the amount of fans from Chelsea and Arsenal that would want to go. So in the end, it looks like we're going to have a half-empty stadium, which is just the last thing that you want for a showpiece final. So it's an embarrassment for UEFA, no doubt about it. And hopefully they'll learn lessons from that. But, that one of their mottos is, football is for the fans, I think, something like that. And it goes directly against that, doesn't it? It's such a shame. Such a huge night for both clubs, both sets of fans. And, it's turned into an anticlimax, really, in terms of, that everyone wants to be there, don't they? And so many people aren't going to be able to be there.
It's got to be so strange of an environment and a weird ramping up and preparation for that game. UEFA also has other kind of concepts and mottos, and most of them include fighting racism, exclusionariism, and inclusion being a big part of their platform. Can you tell us, how you feel about the Mkhitaryan situation? And now I'll set the stage a little bit. Everybody knows the situation, but tracing back to August when the competition really started, and we were in fact drawn against Karabakh in the group stage. My thought is there's three parties to this. Actually, four, if you include fans, some of whom are of Armenian descent. You've got UEFA, completely responsible. You've got Arsenal, who had to make some choices. You've got Mkhitaryan and his family, of course, who had to make choices. And then you've got some of the fans who would be willing to travel there but aren't allowed. But your thoughts, Alan, on what you would have liked to have seen the club do or see the club do, or if they've handled it in a way that you'd be endorsing?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, UEFA insists that, he could go there, no problem. He would be looked after. I can understand the players' reluctance, and he maybe is thinking of his family more than himself. I mean, before this all kicked off, I didn't realise that Armenia, had occupied some land right smack bang in the middle of Azerbaijan. I don't know how that came about, but obviously Azerbaijan aren't going to be too keen about that and about Armenia in general. It's such a shame, isn't it, that this has happened. I can't remember it happening too many times in the past where we've had this kind of. I'm sure there have been, times, but listen, I mean, Mkhitaryan, he's had one or two good little spells, but he's disappointed in the main, I think, for me. So from that point of view, I maybe don't see it as too much of a loss, but you want your full squad there. And the fact that he's not going to be there is wrong. So it's just another kind of brick in the wall. It's just such a shame that things have turned out this way. And I'm sure the player himself, you'd hope the player himself he's really disappointed he's not going to be able to take part, because you never know when this kind of occasion is going to come around again.
Yeah, I mean, and by all accounts, he is disappointed. He's now had to be accused of making political statements by people in Azerbaijan, by their ambassador. But the worst thing, possibly the worst thing, is that Arsenal and of course Chelsea supporters who have Armenian descent or stamps on their passport or last names that end in IAN or YAN have been denied visas and denied the opportunity to come to the game as a supporter. And they're willing to spend the money, they're willing to make the travel, and they're not being allowed to, which I think is. They even tried, Danny, did you know they tried to ban Ian Wright because they saw the Ian part of his name and they thought he was from Armenia? No.
Well, I've heard ex-Leeds midfielder John Sheridan has had a nightmare getting there.
So yeah, I mean, it's just logistically, but let's put that on the back burner now. And although with one other question, you don't have to expand on this if you don't want, Alan, but there's been a lot of talk online, some from journalists and pundits, some from Arsenal supporters, some from just commenters from the outside about the concept of a boycott, and the boycott. To make a point, to make a stand, to accept whatever punishment comes into play and say some things are bigger than money or football or glory. Based on UEFA's response to the concept of if anyone even chants or holds banners that are anti-UEFA, that leads me to some concern that they may make Arsenal suffer so bad that we'll end up being surpassed by Sutton United in the league format. But what are your thoughts on the concept of a boycott? If there's any reality that could have happened in that situation at any point, maybe not now, and if you think that if that's just a kind of a pipe dream or a little optimistic.
What are you on about a boycott because of the Mkhitaryan issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could say through a lot of issues, but really it would come down to the human rights and those elements if they really wanted to make a stand on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure whether that would help, really. Everyone's worked so hard to get to this point, and another 90 minutes, 120 minutes, you don't really want to pull out because of it, as upset as you are.
And then.
So I don't think probably Arsenal would have considered that. So yeah.
There's a question from Peter Kennelly who says, say there was a situation whereby an Arsenal player wasn't allowed to play at Anfield that night for reasons not connected to football, like if they had a ban on people named Tony or Lee, the ban on Allen would have hurt them as well, so we can't use that. But do you think that the team would have just gone on and played the game, or would there have been discussion about a boycott? I guess based on your previous answer, I know what this is going to be, but we wanted to read the player's answer. I mean, can you even imagine a situation within Europe where certain people would say you're not welcome?
Well, we've had very similar talks and discussions about racism, haven't we, over the last few months, with Raheem Sterling being at the centre of it and whether the lads should walk off the pitch, as a show of protest. I mean, UEFA, I'm sure they'd come down hard on any fans displaying anti-UEFA banners, but, there's some paltry fines, as we saw in Italy recently, for fans yelling racist abuse at players. So, there's a contradiction there.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I think more often than not, players would look to the club to make any kind of a stand rather than initiating it themselves.
Sure. Well, let's get on to the game itself then, because obviously, as I mentioned, there's been too little attention paid to the game, so it doesn't do any good for us to pay attention to everything other than the game. Massive stakes for Arsenal, other than maybe a few times in the last 20 years where we've had fourth place and Champions League qualification go down to the last day of the season. I don't know that there's been that much financially and pride-wise and transfer policy-wise at stake in in a one-off game. Chelsea's already in the group stage of the Champions League next season. Arsenal really, really need this one. To me, the lineup in the second game in Valencia was just about the best 11 I think we could have put out there. Mainsley, Koscielny, and Socrates at the back. Monreal at the back. Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac as a wing-back, Xhaka Torreira in the middle, and then Ozil, Lacazette, and Aubameyang up top. What are your thoughts on how we approach this match? Does Chelsea pose different kinds of threats where we should set up differently? Where does Welbeck fit in? What are your thoughts on the on-pitch aspect of the game? Yeah,
I mean, listen, on Welbeck, it's good to have him back, but I certainly wouldn't see him playing a part in the starting 11. But I mean, that team that started in Valencia, it looked really good, didn't it? And I don't think there's any question that Aubameyang and Lacazette won't play together. Ozil, I don't know. Emery will be thinking about Eden Hazard. What do we do? Do we make special provisions for him? He'll want to be attacking, yeah. That's our strength, isn't it? Attacking. There's no doubt about that. We're not suited to sitting there and frustrating the opposition. So I think he'll be fairly bold. Not rash, but he'll feel that if we get enough of the ball and we use it as well as we did in Valencia, we can do some damage to Chelsea. You'd never bank on us keeping a clean sheet against Chelsea, but we can hurt them, and that's our strength in this match, I think.
Yeah, we have seemed to have done quite well against Chelsea in recent years, and some of the players are there. Well, obviously, new coaching, and we know that Unai Emery is no stranger to playing in a Europa League final. He's not going to want to have this be the end of his 100% streak there. So, but do you think the team under his guidance, knowing how they've gone through the last 6 weeks of the season, has the mentality to brush that aside and the travel, the dead atmosphere that we're going to have? Do you think that the mentality is there for this team to be able to come through and put it away early, hopefully?
Well, listen, it should be. If your mind's not right for a game like this, you've got to put all the outside things to the back of your mind and just think about your individual jobs, your job as a team. And, we were talking about that togetherness, that determination a few moments ago, and they've got to show that. There's so much at stake. Everybody wants to be in the Champions League, so that it's a massive dangling carrot for the Arsenal boys. You could argue that Chelsea, the pressure's off. They've already qualified for that competition. They can play with a little bit more freedom. I'm not so sure about that, because it's not just about qualifying for the Champions League. It's about the trophy. It's about winning that match, lifting the Europa League Cup. So
it's hardly a dead rubber for them. I mean, they do like their European trophies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and of course, Maurizio Sarri, there's a lot of question marks swirling around him. But were Chelsea to win the Europa League, God forbid, they've had a fantastic season under the Italian. And whether that would persuade Abramovich and friends to keep him, I don't know. But no, from our boys' point of view, there's so much to go for. And if the stadium's half empty, there'll be a disappointment there. You go out for a warm-up, you want to see it absolutely chock full, as we did in Parma in '94, and that gives you a lift. But once the whistle goes, you kind of put that, you ignore that. You're not aware of it really, and you knuckle down to the job in hand. So, the boys should be right on it, and I'm sure they'll be fired up.
Definitely, and there have been a little bit of mind games, it seems, from Chelsea in the last week or so. Just some interestingly timed things happening. We've got Olivier Giroud signing a new contract. Now, he's not an Arsenal player, but a lot of people still consider him family. But coming out in the press the week before the game saying his blood is now blue. Olivier Giroud, by the way, someone who Wikipedia and some other people have drawn some comparisons to a certain Arsenal player of the past. Have you heard those before? No. I mean, you're obviously a better looking version, but and a more talented.
Oh, I thought you were talking about his comments. Oh no, yeah. Well, Arsene Wenger came up with that comparison a few years ago, and then I went down to interview Olivier because of it. But I mean, he's got to show commitment to Chelsea, hasn't he? They're paying his wages now, and I know that kind of stings with Arsenal fans because he had such a close connection. But I suppose in a way he's saying what he feels the Chelsea fans want to hear. He doesn't want them to think there's any kind of half and half allegiance there.
Of course. I mean, he couldn't have said anything other than that. It just, again, in the context of the game coming up, it does seem, quite a bit staged, but, so they have the ability to stage it, so why not? The second thing, of course, is an announcement that somehow slipped out, not by Petr Cech, but just leaked out somehow this week that Petr Cech has agreed to join Chelsea as their sporting director in the summer. Something that he is smartly denied doing or saying, he's saying doing all the right things. And there is no question he's a consummate professional. But, gotta wonder how that just snuck out there a week before the game. Interesting public announcement policy there or whatever, public relations. But Andrew the Hinkley Gooner, who's in our chat right now, sent in the question, Smudge, being completely honest, no corporate responses. Not that you would ever give one. Would you be happy playing Cech in goal in the final, knowing that he's playing against his future colleagues? I know he wouldn't throw one in, but it's got to subconsciously be on his mind. I have a feeling your answer is going to be a certain way, but I mean, given that this news has come out, do you think it makes any difference?
It's been less than ideal, of course it has, and the player himself, Petr Cech, must be going, oh my God, that's the last thing I wanted, on the eve of a huge game, my last game for Arsenal, if he does get picked, and I think he will get picked, because it would send out the wrong signals if he didn't. He's a popular figure in the dressing room. He's been an important presence there. He's going to be a loss, even though, he's not been number one choice in the league. And if he was dropped, I think the lads would go, oh, that's not right. I think as a teammate, you go, that's not right. He's played in every round. We know he'll be committed. He'll give his best. So I think it would leave a sour taste. And I would be amazed if Unai Emery, did leave him out because of that. Bernd Leno is obviously the number one now, but Petr Cech, I think, will play. And, the situation won't affect him, I don't think. He's a top pro, has been all his career. So I know fans would get worried about that. But as a player, you're not thinking of all these outside things when you go out onto that pitch. And he'd be desperate to finish his Arsenal career on a high. It's not gone how he would have wanted, I don't think, when he first joined. But he'll be desperate to finish it on a high.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone would question his professional approach to the game. To me, and the key word of what Andrew said and the way that I feel about it is subconscious. The subconscious of knowing that, in a few weeks you're going to be making possibly personnel decisions on these people you can focus on the 90 minutes as much as possible. And I say this as a former professional athlete, clearly, but it's the subconscious, it's the preparation thinking, are people going to think if I make a mistake that it's fixed or that I did it because I didn't care enough? Sometimes it would seem to me that subconscious lead up can affect your performance and that's less than ideal. I don't see for a minute Unai Emery saying, because of this, that Petr Cech didn't even leak it out there. Because of this, I'm going to change and put Bernd Leno in. I don't see it happening, but I am concerned about it, I guess, is the way of saying that. But Andrew sent in another question, and we'd actually talked briefly before the podcast about Danny, who's disappeared with some technical issues. He had a memory of something that had happened 30 years ago with you. Andrew has another one. He told us that apparently at some point in his past, his Alan Smith moment took place in the lobby of a Radisson somewhere after a Carling Cup match where you and Jeff Shreves apparently spent some time with him and a couple of very drunk blokes that he was with and played championship manager with them for a bit. And he wants to know if you remember this momentous occasion for you and where it ranks on your life's achievements.
Well, I hate to say it, but I don't remember that. I remember going into the bar at the Radisson on many an occasion after a night game. We always used to stop at that hotel, and I remember chatting to fans and that. But, you know, although I have worked on FIFA for a good number of years, I don't really play it too often, and I certainly don't play Championship Manager, so I wouldn't know what I was doing. Yeah, we probably went over and had a drink and a chat and had a bit of a mess about, but I don't really remember that. I don't know how many years ago it was he's talking, but
we should do a show next season where we just get like 50 or 60 people to tell me their one interaction with you that they had 10, 15, 35 years ago, and we'll just quiz you to see how many of them you remember. So